All right, welcome back, Pivotal Discourse faithful. I am sitting down with Allentown Mayor Matt Tuerk. How are you, Matt?
I'm superb. Thanks. How you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show. I'm sure you've got plenty of things to do, so thank you for coming out today.
It's my pleasure. I love visiting our neighboring communities. So we're over here in Southside Bethlehem and love it as much as I love the rest of the Lehigh Valley.
Excellent, excellent. So let's talk a little bit about your background first. Did you grow up in the Lehigh Valley?
No, I'm actually I was born in northeastern Pennsylvania. I was born in East Stroudsburg.
Okay.
And we lived there. My family, my grandparents, my grandfather on my mom's side was from East Stroudsburg, Minnesink Hills, going way back. My grandmother was a Cuban immigrant. So she came to New York City to go to Columbia University to study dentistry, and she ended up taking a vacation in the Poconos like many people in the 40s in New York did, and she found my grandfather and fell in love. So my mom is from that area, and my dad had come up to East Stroudsburg because he read that there was like a 2-to-1 women to men ratio at East Stroudsburg University. So,
smart man.
Yep, he's like 19 years old, and he's looking for a future.
That's hilarious.
So they met at Shawnee on the Delaware. As I think he was a sous chef, she was a waitress, and they got together, and then my brother and I came along.
Excellent.
So, but we only stayed there. I left when I was 9, and my family moved because my parents, as you know, they might have been kind of college dropouts when they had me and my brother, but there were no dummies, and they ended up going back to school. My grandparents kind of watched me and my brother. They got degrees from East Stroudsburg University and then went to Boulder, Colorado to pursue graduate degrees. So my dad got a PhD in molecular biology. My mom she was doing a doctoral program in psych and took us to Colorado. And it completely changed. I'm very much like a Pennsylvania guy, but I also had that benefit of spending a few years, 10 years in the independent Republic of Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, that's incredible.
Changed my perspective, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Colorado is actually one of my favorite states. When I graduated college, my buddy and I did 2 weeks on the Colorado Trail. We started in Durango and just kind of worked our way up. Yeah. Amazing.
It's great. And it's funny because I moved there when I was 9. My brother was 8. And something about 9 years old, like I was programmed as a Pennsylvania guy and left Colorado as soon as I graduated from high school. He's still there. He's been there for almost 40 years now. So we were, I came back. I moved to Philly. I was like, the whole time I lived in Colorado, I was like, I'm from Pennsylvania. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Okay.
And I just came back and moved to Philly as soon as I graduated. And then, kind of lived my punk rock life and took me to various different spots around the country. But I was in Southeast Pennsylvania I was there until like 1997, so for about almost 4 years, and then went and moved to Washington State to live with a person that's my wife now in Bellingham, Washington, and we kind of bounced around the country. And eventually, I was in school in South Carolina at College of Charleston and did a grad program at the University of South Carolina. And when we finished that program, I was looking for a job. It was like 2004, and my wife was 8 months pregnant. I was like, how can we get back to Pennsylvania? And I found employment. It was a job in Bangor, but the job itself was actually in the country of Panama.
Oh.
But I was like going to be based in Bangor area, and I wanted to be in a city. And my grandparents were still alive at the time, so I was like, okay, we can be in the Lehigh Valley and be close to them. And when I came to the Lehigh, I didn't really know the Lehigh Valley, but I knew I wanted to be in a city, and Allentown is like the city for the Lehigh Valley. So we ended up moving here and never looked back. We've absolutely loved it. It's been amazing.
Okay, so that brings you to Lehigh Valley. How do you go from working for a job down in Panama to up and deciding to run for mayor?
So when I did that graduate degree at the University of South Carolina, it was an MBA program, an international MBA program, and the focus was on economic development.
Okay.
We had a small cohort that was interested in international development. I was interested in economic development more as a kind of from the perspective of urban development. I was always fascinated by the way that cities worked. So when I took the job and was working in Panama right out of that program, and my wife and I were living here. We had the oldest kid, and I was traveling back and forth a lot. I was traveling to Panama I was there a week out of every month. And eventually, after a year and a half, had an opportunity to just move the whole family down there. So my wife and my my oldest, Mel, and I moved to Panama, and we lived there for like a year. And then she got pregnant again, and we moved back to Allentown to have the kid. International travel with 2 young kids sucks. It's a total drag.
Domestic travel with 2 young kids sucks.
That's right. So I wanted to find something that would allow me to travel less. I was interested in the city that I was living in, and I found an opportunity working for the Allentown Economic Development Corporation, this is like 2008, and this is kind of right at the beginning of the global financial crisis.
Yeah.
But at that time, we're still kind of on an upsurge in terms of redevelopment in a city like Allentown. So we had just seen the construction of PPL Plaza and the Butts Corporate Center, and the Allentown Brew Works was opening, and we had the Coca-Cola Park, and it seemed like Allentown was on the upswing. I was interested in how we could be part of this ongoing revitalization. So I left the nonprofit job, I left the job in Panama to work in the nonprofit job for the Economic Development Corporation, and then the global financial crisis hit, and work got real for an economic development corporation.
Sure.
And we did a lot of good things. It was an interesting time in the country in economic development. This is the beginning of the first Obama term. We were getting creative about how we created jobs in a city like Allentown, how we promoted investment. And I spent 5 years doing that, working on kind of interesting things like a hackerspace and first co-working space in the Lehigh Valley. And then I was given the opportunity to move on to the Regional Economic Development Corporation, LVEDC, which kind of just expanded the scope and looked like it was more interesting to me. And it was awesome. And I was able to, over 4 years at LVEDC, travel the country, actually travel the globe. I went and promoted the region as a destination for investment from places as far flung as Tampa, Florida, to Dallas, Texas, to Seattle, Washington, to Shanghai, China.
Oh, wow.
And it was great, but then the pandemic hit, and I had already begun. I had hit that point where I was like excited about the opportunity to promote and talk about the Lehigh Valley, but I wanted to see what else there was. And I loved this city, Allentown, that I lived in, and I was kind of looking at the landscape. And at that time, it wasn't clear that Mayor O'Connell was going to run again. And I saw that I'm a spreadsheet nerd. I dug into the voter file and looked and saw that really to win an election in Allentown, you didn't need a ton of votes.
Right.
So I downloaded the spreadsheet of the voter file, started looked at like, hey, how many people do I know here? And I was surprised by how many people I knew. And I could see a path to victory to be the mayor for the city of Allentown and do something that I thought loved doing.
Yeah.
And that was, serving the residents of the city. I felt like I could craft a compelling narrative that would allow me to step into this position. So with the pandemic, I think a lot of people said now's the time to think about doing something different.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, now's the time. And I talked to the team over at LVDC and let them know that I was going to think about doing this next thing. And they were super supportive. And I had a great group of people helping me out. And we were able to pull it off to run a successful campaign.
That's crazy. So has that always been an interest of yours, or this just kind of came up with the pandemic? You're like, you know what, I want to try something different. I'll just run for mayor.
I think it's funny. I think that when you're in economic development, you're proximate to a lot of politicians because there's a lot of your natural partner is government folks, right? And elected officials are among that group of people. So I knew politicians, but I never kind of thought about the political path for myself. I knew those folks, but I was focused on other things. What I was most intrigued by was the challenge. I had the MBA background. I'd served in a lot of different capacities in nonprofit and in Panama as an operations manager, as a controller, as basically the IT guy. Like I kind of wore every hat in business, and I looked at the city of Allentown and I looked at this $125 million operation with 800 employees, and I looked at the management challenge associated with it. And I saw that what I could see is that one of the one of the things that the city really needed was effective management. So it wasn't so much the political draw for me. It was the opportunity to apply my talents to a significant management challenge that had that ancillary benefit of helping out the residents of the city. And then things evolved, right? So this is like October of 2020 that I declared, and over the course of a campaign, I got to meet a ton of people in Allentown, got to hear their stories. I got to hear what they expected from their leaders. I got to know lots of other people involved in this. And as I got closer to the first a primary and then a general campaign, I tweaked the ideas, right? And I started to think about what I would do that would really be unique. And that was, that's what brought me to today. So it was never that was never the necessary career path. I just wanted to I always sought a challenging position and always sought work that would put me in a position to help people out. So being the mayor of the third largest city in the Commonwealth is like the perfect spot. Like if you want challenging, it's challenging.
Yeah.
And if you want to serve the people, there's a lot of need in the city like Allentown.
So we're going to go through the process here, but so talk to me about the campaign process. I mean, that's got to be almost mind-blowing coming from no political background to just kind of jumping into a mayor campaign.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It's like a startup. So when you start a business like that, it's a business on some level, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to figure out how, you have to put a team together, and you have to figure out your
brand,
marketing and your brand.
Yeah.
Exactly. I wear contacts, but and glasses. And I can remember early on committing to okay, if I'm going to be in photography, I just have to pick a look. Yep. And I picked, I'm going to keep the contacts in.
Yeah.
And so for that literally every day, because you're out and in public every day. So every day from I think it was October 7th to I think it was the election was November 3rd, every day for over a year, I put the contacts in. Oh. And there were days where I was I just want to wear the glasses today.
Yeah.
But if you have to build that brand, you have to commit to that look. So, and part of the brand, in addition to that, it's the brand is honesty, and the brand is open communication, and the brand is being present. So it's all that was as we built the campaign, it was I keep coming back to the team, right? It was making sure that I had good people helping me out, and I had really good people helping me out with my primary. And then we shifted the team and took a kind of different tack as we prepared for a general election. But it's that group of people, the people who are paid members of the campaign. But then there's also the legion of friends, the legion of supporters, and the family that are there to help you out and give you, help you rest when you need to rest, and
sure, and
just have your back. So that part, that's when you look at what constitutes a campaign. It's being smart, and it's working hard, and it's having good people behind you.
Talk to me about the energy level required for something like that, because I just get exhausted watching people go through a campaign.
There's some. I don't even know how to do it. So I'm a marathon runner.
Okay.
I've run 17. I think I've gone the distance. You lose track. I've lost track 17 or 18 times.
Jeez.
And you learn a lot of things when you're preparing for marathons. And one is the value of a team. Another is discipline and focus on that hard work. But another is kind of digging in and finding that next gear. Sure. So for me, it's the energy comes from, it's keeping your body in shape. It's learning how to recover, right? Making sure that you're getting, I get 8 hours of sleep a night, right?
Mm.
I'm dedicated to
That's great.
8 hours, and I eat right, and I exercise, and that's where I draw the energy from. But I'm also, I think a lot of the energy comes from being engaged by the work that I'm doing, right? So getting to talk to really cool people, day after day, getting to talk to or kind of work with very cool people who have a lot of energy themselves. I just kind of draw on that, and I work hard from 5:30 in the morning to 7:30 at night, and then I fall asleep at 9:30 and start all over again.
Okay.
And it was the same one. I mean, the campaign was like that too. During the campaign, it was And again, that marathon training helps, right? Because
Sure.
you're knocking on doors every day and taking lots of steps, right? So to be able to just find that gear when everybody else around you wants to quit, like that's what leads to successful campaigns.
Hey guys, Mr. Wellness here from the Wellness 101 Show. Join me as we take a quick step-by-step journey of basic tips and tricks on how to stay healthy. From developing easy healthy habits to surviving allergy season and everything in between, the Wellness 101 Show is fun, educational, and designed to help you thrive. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by scanning the QR code and hit the bell icon to be notified of any future episodes. It's time to make healthcare fun with Wellness 101.
Did you find it hard to kind of get your name out there?
I think so. It was difficult. One thing that I saw early on was that a local blogger had worked with like another kind of erstwhile candidate to do a recognition poll, and this is after I'd announced, and I was polling at like 1% or like maybe less than 1%, like name recognition, like just pure name recognition.
On a positive note, there's only one way to go from there.
That's true. But I was also, I had that marketing background from the years at Economic Development Corporation, right?
Okay.
So I knew what it was like to get the name of Lehigh Valley out when you're visiting Tianjin, China.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, if I can talk about this, region in Pennsylvania while I'm in the largest country in the world, I think, and convince people and tell people what's going on, then I think I can tell people in a city of 125,000 about me. And it was, I think that part of it was having kind of an interesting story. Part of it is, in addition to that story being, Allentown's a 55% Latino city, 54%, I think.
Okay.
And I'm a Spanish speaker, right? So being able to communicate with people in English and in Spanish helps tell the story. There's something I had something interesting that I could share.
Sure.
So it's just hard work, right? Like it's making sure that you kind of don't get knocked down when you're faced with that 1%, right? And I was able to speak clearly about what I thought we could do in the city, and I think that Allentown residents are looking for something in that election, and continue to look for something that they can hold on to.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, the last couple of years for Allentown has not been the nicest.
No, it's been terrible. I mean, it's, if you go back to when the FBI came into City Hall under Mayor Pulowski, I don't know if you can say this is the start of the very rough years, but that was 2015, and it was rough. I mean, to be a city resident when your mayor is on trial is tough, but also, and this is what I want everybody to know, those 800 employees or 830 employees of the city of Allentown, it's really tough when your boss is on trial about that. So they went from that to a conviction, and then Mayor O'Connell, who did a great job stepping in and kind of like stabilize, calming the waters a little bit. But he started in, I think, April of 2018, and he had less than 2 years before COVID hit.
Right.
So just when things were kind of stabilizing, we get dealt with one of the most significant world events that in my lifetime, the most significant world event that I've ever seen and probably ever will see. So he had to deal with that. So in Allentown, for the residents and for the employees of the city, it's been a really rough go for the past 6 years, and layer into that kind of increasing levels or decreasing levels of civility in the country. It's been bad.
Yeah.
And I think that and layer in additionally it's a city that in 2010 was 40% Latino. In the year 2000 it was 24% Latino. We're growing as a Latino city, and it's a group of people that have never had representation in City Hall. So we've been kind of looking for something different, and I think that's what I was able to offer to voters, and that's what the feedback that I continue to get now is hey, it's so great to have a mayor who shows up. It's great to have a mayor who speaks our language. It's great to have a mayor who cares. People are concerned about me. They want to make sure that I'm relaxing and I'm spending time with my family, but they're it's exciting. There's hope.
Well, I think it's interesting because both Allentown and Bethlehem had new mayors come in January, and you both are younger guys with a completely different way of looking at things. Like it's interesting to me. I follow you, but I'm probably the least political person on the planet. I'm just a lowly podcast host, but I follow both of you on social media, and I just love what you guys are doing. Like, you'll go out for a morning run and you'll go live and just talk about different things. Like, that didn't happen before. So I think it's almost like people get a more personal touch with the both of you, and the fact that both you and Mayor Reynolds are going to each other's council meetings. Like, that's fantastic. That's what you guys should be doing. Your neighbors, we should be working together. I just love to see what's going on.
And I think for me, it comes out of having worked in regional economic development for a long time. So I just see the whole Lehigh Valley as a great place, a singular place. I look at things being very good in Southside Bethlehem as being an asset over in Allentown. I love Mayor Reynolds. He's like unbelievably smart.
I went to high school with Willie.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Nice.
He's a great guy.
He's awesome guy. He's got a better jump shot than I do. I think I'm faster than him now in the half marathon. But
he can hang on the basketball court. Right. That's for sure.
But that level. I think both of us recognize that in this era, in this place, like, having a mayor that is accessible in a lot of, like, not just there and present so you can kind of say hello, but somebody who can engage you in conversation.
Yes.
That's what I think people are looking for and they're also looking for, like, somebody who is, Willie's a really smart guy. I think they're looking for somebody who can listen and apply their intellect to the challenges that we face today. And it's not just him. It's continuing to work with Mayor Panto over in Easton,
who's been awesome for, it feels like, forever.
It's nice to have the energy, and he's got the energy too, but for guys like me and Mayor Reynolds, like, to have the guy who's been there, right?
Sure.
And can kind of give us some advice. But all, the other part of it, and one of the things that I relied on and continue to rely on, is the relationship that I have with former Mayor of Bethlehem, Don Cunningham, who was my boss at Elva EDC and who is a county executive in Lehigh County. He is there for me, right? He's on the team, and it's good to have the guidance from sitting mayors. It's good to have the relationship with with my peer and Willie. Like, we make a good team here in the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is, I don't know if it's unique to our region, but it's a good thing that we've got and something that we can build on.
Well, I think it's interesting. Like, you've got Mayor Panto, who's been doing it for a long time. You've got Mayor Reynolds, who has been on council for a long time. So he's been within the, political scheme. And then you've got yourself, who's relatively new to the game. So you've got three very different ways of looking at things, but you're all kind of doing it the right way, which is pretty awesome.
When we check it, I was really impressed. I went to Mayor Panto's State of the City address over at Lafayette in March. And one of the slides that he started off with was a picture of him as a very young mayor. And I can't remember the mayor of Bethlehem at the time, but Mayor Dodona was in the picture too. And they used to get together and just, have lunch once a quarter and talk and share with each other. And that's something that we've started to do now.
Oh, that's great.
In 2022, just checking in with each other. Again, Willie knows city councils. He knows Bethlehem City Council, but it's lessons that apply to any city council engagement.
Sure.
Mayor Panto knows the world of the National League of Cities and the U.S. Conference of Mayors. He's good with that, and hopefully I don't know what I share with them, and I sometimes feel like I'm just like there for the ride and learning.
You want to talk about revitalization? Yeah. I mean, downtown Easton.
Yeah, killing it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So, and you're well on your way. So, I'm sure you guys can bounce stuff off of each other.
For me, there is a ton to bounce off each other, but he also, one thing that you can definitely speak to is the quality of the team. So Mayor Panto is lucky enough to have a guy named John Kingsley, who used to be at LVEDC. He's got his admin guy is a guy named Luis Campos, who's phenomenal. One of the early hires that Mayor Reynolds made in Bethlehem was Janine Santoro. Like, there's just really good people. I was one of the things, I think, and I don't like tooting my own horn, and maybe it's not even doing that, but one of the smartest things that I did was I told every department head in the city of Allentown, hey, you've got your job. Like, when I come in, everybody's going to be here. Everybody who's here on, I think it was like January 31st, will be here on on December 31st, will also be here on January 3rd.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, you can count on having your job, and we're going to, like, I know that you all are phenomenal professionals. I want to make sure that I put you in a position to succeed. And since that, I had one person that I promoted from Community and Economic Development Director up to our Chief Operating Officer. And I had one person who retired after 33 years working with the city.
Okay.
But for the most part, like, we have our team sticking together. There's new opportunities popping up here and there where people are finding, one of the beautiful things about the administration of the city of Allentown is, like, it's an exceptionally talented group of people. So when the Lehigh Valley needs a municipal finance director, they come looking in Allentown, right? When somebody's looking for a director of development, like, they come looking in Allentown. So we get our people get picked up by other municipalities, by the private sector all the time, which creates opportunity in our city. I think we have a good learning environment, so we're able to welcome new people in, and it's really all of our successes as leaders is just how do we get a team working together to deliver, and that's what Mayor Panto, Mayor Reynolds, and I are doing.
You're only as good as your team, right?
That's right.
So, like I said before, I'm not a big politics guy, and it sounds like this is relatively new for you as well. Can you tell our listeners what exactly the job of a mayor is?
It's funny. So when I think in the first month I dropped in on Mayor Reynolds, just wanted to check in on each other. And we both kind of disclosed to each other, like, the job. I said to him, the one way that, so for as great as the team is, there's still, like, you got to manage people. Right?
Sure.
And I said, I think that nobody told me going in the job of the mayor would be basically mediating disputes between employees and eating candy, right? Like, it was just, he was concerned about becoming diabetic from the amount of candy that he was eating. But early on, it's like just getting in and managing little disputes and spending time with 800 people, right? And that was the job of the mayor, I think, it's myriad. So on some level, at least in the case of Allentown, you're the CEO of an 800-person organization with a $125 million budget. And a lot of that job then is managing the finances of the city with advice from a good team, managing the human resources of the city, again, with support from a really good team. It's meeting with external stakeholders. It's an administrative job in a lot of ways. The other side of it is being the kind of giving people hope, right? And speaking intelligently, communicating what's going on in that city to the residents. And that was one of our early focuses when we came in. The first hire that I made, or I kind of made two in one day, but one of the first hires that I made was a woman named Genesis Ortega, who would be my communications manager, she deeply understands how to communicate, broadly speaking, but also she and I are both Spanish speakers, making sure that our residents are fully informed and that we're having conversations with our residents and that we're not just speaking to residents, right? Like, it's a dialogue. So taking complicated issues and making them understandable, that's one of, I think, the key responsibilities of a mayor. And it's any number of issues, right? So we try to, we had an ordinance in the city of Allentown that limited the size of a trash can that you could put out. And it was something that our waste hauler, was not under contract to take these big trash cans out. We had to communicate that out to our residents, help them understand why we were doing this, help them understand how this made the removal of trash more efficient, and make sure that they fully understood the issue. That was challenging, right? But it's a fundamental communications issue. We have the dirt bikes issue in the city of Allentown and in Bethlehem, and probably anywhere else around the country that is listening has dirt bike issues. One thing that was a perception in the city of Allentown was that nobody cared, right? Last year we had dirt bikes and it seemed like nobody in the city cared. And so we've been focused on helping our residents, and really the residents of the entire Lehigh Valley, understand that we're doing everything that we can to address this issue. And part of that is working collaboratively across the region with other mayors, with other township managers, with police chiefs from other municipalities to address this issue that is it's a totally annoying and unacceptable activity. But that was like letting people know that we actually care about this stuff. That was one of the big communication issues. So you end up, as the mayor, it's like a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365. You stay busy.
Yeah.
The job, but it's just the best job in the world, right? It's all of that stuff plus like going to, a third grade classroom and reading to kids. Yeah. It's being kind of out in the park on a run and having people be excited that you're out there as an ambassador for the city. It's raising the transgender flag for the first time in the history of the Lehigh Valley to show people or let people know that they're seen, right?
And that they're welcome.
And that's part of the big job of being a mayor is welcoming people in, letting the city hall employees know that we care. Like it's a little bit of everything.
Sure.
It's tough, but it's not.
I'm getting tired just listening, but
it's funny. I mean, it's something that if you had told me, I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't know the depths of what I was getting into when I first declared that I was going to run for mayor.
Right.
And I think that often when my wife and I walk our dogs twice a day, like the foundation of our marriage is walking the dogs and just having like a morning conversation and an evening conversation.
Okay.
And we often talk about just like how unusual the job is, right? Like what makes it special or what makes it remarkable, and how I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to be sitting in that seat right now. It's a little something different every day, but it's awesome. I totally love it.
But great team aside, it's not all roses all the time. And at the end of the day, it does fall on your shoulders. Is that difficult to kind of take on? I
mean, there's part of being a leader is making decisions, right? And nobody's happy with every decision that you make, right? Like each decision, somebody's going to be upset, and I hear about it, but I have really thick skin, right? So I don't mind.
Kind of good.
It's a really good quality to have as a mayor. People get upset about there's always and sometimes it's like there's social media trolls that just hate everything. There's nothing you can do to win.
Nope.
And then they get your email address and they let you know via email too. But it's that ultimately doesn't bother me as much. Like if I upset the one person who's just perpetually unhappy, I want to make sure that, again, I'm being the best boss that I can be, that I'm being the best leader that I can be for those city employees who have really struggled through a lot, not just in the past 6 years, but just as being a municipal employee. It's tough. It's sometimes not a respected position, but they do amazing work. So making sure that they're being treated fairly, that they're working in an awesome work environment, that's what I strive to do. So when I disappoint an employee who wants something that we might not be able to deliver, that's tough. I'm also, we have times where bad things happen in the city from time to time, and you never want to. I wish we lived in a totally peaceful world. I wish there was nobody was ever hurt, but it happens, and that's tough to bear. But again, like we have a really good team. We care for our residents, and deeply, I'll underline that word care. Like we care about our residents in the city of Allentown. So when you care about something, and they get hurt, it hurts you.
Sure.
So I'd love to see, I think we can, I always say we're doing the best that we can, and I know that we can do better. And so that's what we bring every day.
Well, as long as you continue with that, I think anybody who thinks that, this is good enough, like you're not doing your job. If you know that you can always do better, things are looking up.
Yeah. But the other side of that is knowing that you're doing the best you can.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
You can do better every day. It's not that like, I never want anybody to feel like they're not valued or they haven't done enough, because they do. It's just like I always, every day I'm like, I can do this thing a little bit better. Like as I'm thinking about my answers, I'm like, I know I can answer better right now. That's just how I'm built.
Trust me. I'm like, can I ask a better question? So you're 5 months in.
Mm-hmm.
Is it what you expected it to be, or is it just completely different?
Is it? I mean, again, there's expectations. I'm a meditator. I get comfortable with uncertainty.
Are we going to see like meditation with the mayor? That's a great video series. Mark that down.
I can do that. I get uncomfortable. Or I get comfortable with uncertainty, right? So I never know what to expect. So my expectations for what the office was going to bring, like I didn't set them in too fixed in one area. I knew I was going to go in and be flexible and see what it had to offer and make adjustments to that. So I think when I talk about expectations, I knew I was pleasantly surprised by the quality of the employees in the city of Allentown. Like that's been one thing that I didn't expect. I expected that the employees were good and I knew what they were doing, but they're really good and they really know what they're doing and they care a lot. Like everybody that you talk to, not to a person, but many of those 800 employees, like they went to school at Central Catholic, or they're an Allen grad, or they grew up at Ridge and Gordon, and they want to see their city succeed.
So they're connected.
They're deeply connected.
Yeah.
And so they are. That's one of the things. Like unlocking that and like recognizing that, it goes back again. It's like, okay, I see you, right? Like I see that kid who grew up on the East Side and is still like pissed off that the East Side gets ignored, right? And it's like, okay, we are going to show some love to the East Side. Their level of commitment to the city, really, it's not. I don't want to say it was surprising, but it was. I didn't expect that. I was thrilled.
Awesome. So, what's next for the city of Allentown?
We have. It's a good question. Again, I'm comfortable with the unexpected.
Sure.
I think that we're seeing the whole region grow. We are, as a city, deploying $57 million that came from the state, from COVID relief from the federal government. We want to see those funds go into impact projects. We want to see the money get out into the streets and change these things that haven't seen investment in a long time. So we split that money up into thirds. I have about a third going into infrastructure. There's about a third that's dedicated to city spending. And there's a ton of deferred maintenance that has occurred in the city of Allentown. So our central fire station is like falling into the street. Like it needs investment. We have, it's buildings, but it's also policies and procedure that need investment. But we also took a third of that to dedicate to our organizations in the city that are going to help us address our housing issues, that are going to help address mental health and violence issues, organizations that are going to tackle food insecurity, organizations that will create opportunities for youth, right? Like this is where there's significant need in a city like Allentown and probably cities across the country. The next thing in the city of Allentown is making investments in healthy outcomes for our residents. So making sure that they're living in safe neighborhoods, that they're connecting with each other, that they have access to education, that they have economic opportunity, and ultimately that they've got access to quality health care. That's what we want to see our residents focused on, their healthy outcomes. So maybe you will see, meditation with the mayor, right? Like bringing mindfulness to Ridge and Gordon. It's a real thing. I talk about it when I'm talking to residents. They see me. I ride my bicycle to work, so they see me out on the bike. I'm always the kind of brand of mayor that I am is like I'm a head scratch. I make people stop and think.
Well, I'm a fan of the sneakers. I mean, I think every photo I've seen you in, you've had sneakers on. You have them on today.
I got the Chuck Taylors on today.
That's full respect right here.
Well, those are. I mean, that's the thing is that what I love about the world that we're living in now is that with this recognition of mindful approaches to our lives, it does make us stop and think a little bit. And I invite our residents in the city of Allentown to stop and think. I invite our neighbors and across the Lehigh Valley to stop and think before you make judgments about the city of Allentown, right? Like it's not the city that you grew up in. It's different. I love the difference. And ultimately we are what we are. One thing, I talked about being from northeastern Pennsylvania originally. I'm not originally from the Lehigh Valley, but we are like in Allentown. We're going to be unapologetically Allentown. Like we're going to wear the sneakers and we're going to speak Spanish and we're just going to be what we are. And if you don't like it, that's fine. Like we still have to go about our everyday and do our thing in Allentown. Chances are, I think you are going to like what you see. I think that you're going to find something if you can get comfortable with uncertainty, if you can get comfortable with change, people are going to like what they find in Allentown.
I think Allentown's in pretty good hands.
I hope so.
So, last question. You'd mentioned you're a marathon runner.
Mm-hmm.
Are we still training? And if so, what's the next marathon you're running?
So, my go-to marathon was the Flying Pig in Cincinnati.
Oh, okay.
Which happens in the first Sunday of May. So I missed this one because I was busy, like starting up as mayor. My likely next marathon, honestly, I don't know. I ran the St. Luke's half.
Oh, okay.
Or, cool. Excuse me, I didn't run the St. Luke's half. I ran alongside a lot of runners at the St. Luke's half back on April 24th.
Okay.
I ran it a few years ago. That might be the next race that I run.
What is the term called when you like hijack?
The bandits?
Yes.
Yeah. I was like a weird kind of half bandit.
Okay. Somehow I think you'd be okay. You could have just jumped in, and I don't think anybody would have said anything.
I think people were excited. People were like, "Hey, Mayor, run with me."
That's awesome.
But I will probably. I don't think I'm gonna. So we used to have a marathon here. One of my big dreams, working with those mayors, Panto and Reynolds, is to get the marathon back going again.
The Via Marathon.
The Via, exactly.
I ran that one.
I ran it. I think I ran it 3 times. I would love to see.
The cool thing about that one is it was a qualifier for Boston.
Correct.
And it's relatively flat.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's actually downhill.
Yeah. So people were putting in like crazy times, and that's how they could kind of qualify for Boston.
That's correct.
And unfortunately, it's not here anymore.
Well, the last one was 2020. I think, 2020 was the last time that they ran the Via, and that was a virtual. It's not going to happen in 2022. I would love to see it happen again in 2023. Start in Allentown, run through the middle of Bethlehem, end in Easton. It's a perfect Lehigh Valley marathon.
I agree.
That might be the next marathon that I run.
Oh, that's amazing.
But that means that we have to pull together with our mayors and our counties and get everybody together and find a sponsor.
Exactly. All that stuff. Yep.
But
well, let's get the word out. I'm all for it.
Hey, anybody wants to sponsor that one, let me know. We'll see what we can do to pull it together.
That's exciting. Any last words for our listeners today?
¿Qué quiero decir? Yo quiero convertirme en español para las últimas palabras.
I'll take your word for it on that one.
I would just, the last word is that like the Lehigh Valley is changing a lot. It's a really interesting place to be in 2022. And if you're listening from outside the region, like just come check us out. There's a lot of like little points of entry, and it's beautiful people that will welcome you in and show you something really special.
Mayor Tuerk, I'm happy for the city of Allentown, and thank you so much for taking the time to be on our show.
I had a great time. Thank you.